Steve Bentley here, Off-Road Grind and Bentley Custom Off-Road. Thanks for checking out this video. This came together really nice. I'll do a link at the end there and in the description to the rock sliders for this truck 95 second gen 4Runner. And we get this powder coated, but put these rock sliders in with some 1 3/4 inch round tubing and 3x2 3/16 inch main rail, and then on the back he wanted a plate bumper that was all bolted in, so we did that kind of modular. Actually, the two side plates come off, and then there's a well, I think we welded in, or anyways, we'll see it as we're going through this build. I can't remember now, it was a little while ago since I did it. The cross tube across the back, it also made it a super high clearance bumper, but also gave us the mounting locations for the hinge there for that center tire carrier. So love the look, looks awesome. He loved it, and I hope you enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. Steve Bentley here, and today we are going to be working on this sweet 95 second gen 4Runner. I love this color. It's a Raptor line finish that he put on there, and it's like a late model, the older Porsche color. Anyways, we are going to be making some rock sliders for this bad boy. So they're going to go right up in here. Obviously, that's where rock sliders go. And got a little bit of a curvy frame, but got lots of room. No weird suspension components in the way like X-Rius or KDSS. So this is going to be beautiful build once we get this all done. I'm looking forward to getting those knocked out. And then on the back, we are going to be making a high clearance bumper, replacing this guy and putting in some side plating on the corners, and haven't decided what I'm going to do across the back here though, so we'll figure it out as we get that bumper off. And then we're going to be putting a center positioned tire carrier on there, and it is going to look pretty sweet, so stay tuned. Here we go. Okay, change of plans. I do not have enough 2x2 tubing, so I'm gonna go get some more. So instead of zipping off and getting a length of that and then coming back and realizing I need some more steel, I think what I'll do is pop this bumper off, and let me show you how that's gonna come off. Pretty simple. We're going to, looks like some 10s and 12 millimeter bolts up in here. So we've got this hanger here that is up inside, bolts up in there. So we got a couple on there, and then we've got some there, one's missing, and then we've got two up here. Those look like 10s. These look like 10s. Those might be 12s. And I would imagine that's it for the bumper itself. And we've got the plastic cover clips there for the back of the bumper. And it's like the mechanism for the spare tire here. I'm not sure if I'm going to save this cover. I'll figure that out. But let's pop that cover off, take a look at what we got, and then I can start working on that rear bumper too, and planning out, okay, how am I going to build that up, and do I need any more steel? I got some steel plate here that I can use for the bumper sides, but unfortunately I need some 2x2 tubing, so we're going to get that dialed in. Let's figure out what we need to do here for the bumper though. Get that off and go from there. Okay, I wasn't liking the angle that I was having to pull the bumper out at. I didn't want to scratch the paint on there, so I got up underneath, saw some other bolts in for this bracket that was up underneath the truck, and pulled those bolts out, then realized there was some underneath the bumper cover. 3 on that side, 3 on that side, so this should pop off. Yeah, just slide off pretty easily now. and then I'll pull the brackets out individually. I think that's probably the easier way to roll. And of course, that's coming up on something. There we go. Watch that. Okay, we're good. So that's all off. And now we can work on, so these are the brackets, and I don't know if I'm going to use these. To pull these out just to see what we got going on in there, but I gotta figure out a way to attach the frame of the bumper that I'm gonna make into the existing frame here. These might be the best option, and I can put these back up in and weld the bumper that I make into these guys. That might actually work better because they're already there and they're in position. So anyways, let's take a look at what we got going up inside there and go from there. Okay, here we go. I think I have a general idea of what I'm going to do. I'm talked to Aaron, and we are going to remove this hitch because it is sucking on the departure angle. And what I'm planning on doing is tying in a new like high clearance bumper tube across the back. Probably just down underneath here, and so there'll be a bit of a gap here, but that's fine because we need that for the clearance for the door to drop down. And then I'm going to recreate what they've done here with the hitch up inside the tubing of the side rail here and bolt that in. Put a couple bolts up in here, one there, one further forward. So pull those out. I can get this for this one. And then yank that hitch out and then recreate that with a bracket that similarly bolts up inside the frame on each side, and then we can use that in order to secure the bumper. And then I could potentially also use these, I guess, I don't know what they call, like little Y braces up underneath the truck, and then connect the bumper to that as well. So that's my plan so far. So let's get this bumper off, and then I will measure out some tubing and plate. I've got enough 10 gauge steel to do the corners here on each side. And I've got enough, I think I'm going to use a 3x2 inch rectangular tube with a 3/16 inch thick wall across the back. And I think that's going to look pretty sick. And get rid of this hitch, recreate the little mounting points up in here to support the bumper tube, and also for the right side on the hinge support, where you want to secure that in, make it solid. And then I can pull these suckers off on each side as well, and that is going to look pretty good. And get that tire out of there. It doesn't need that anymore because we're making a tire carrier. Sometimes you got to take a step back and think about it, and that's what I'm doing now. Ooh, let's see, I am going to create a little mimic of this hitch insert that goes into the frame, and I'm going to go like this up inside the frame, and then the tubing is going to sit in this little cutout there, and it's going to drop down a little bit. So, but I'm thinking that's the route I'm going to go with this, and then bolt it tight into that frame so then you can take it off. And I think I will also have some tubing coming off the side of the frame here to go support the side panels. That's kind of my rough thought right now. But this is all the 1/4 inch steel I have right now, so I'm going to go get some more steel plate and some more 2x2 square tubing, and then I can get rolling with cutting and drilling some steel. I think that's what I'm gonna do. Here's the plan for the bracket that's gonna go inside the end of the frame rail, and I'm gonna weld the cross tube across the back right into that, and that should put it right in behind the rear door there, down a little bit, probably a little higher than this little guy here. and then we'll build the side panels off that. So let's get on to that. So I'm thinking I'm going to make it just a little bit bigger in case I need to extend the length out a little bit. Actually, I'm going to shift this one. Can I? I think I can. Yeah, I think I'll shift it a little bit more. So I'll cut it here, I think, about an inch longer. And then I'm just going to leave this end here. And the same thing here, I'm going to shift this about an inch out in case I need to extend this out a little bit. I'm not exactly sure where it's going to go, but I think if I just cut it there, that should give me plenty of steel to work with. Got the brackets in, so I think I'm happy with the way they're looking. So I got a bolt here, S&M 12 175, and then another one up at the front there. And it's just a nut that I've welded on the inside of this plate here. Same thing on this side. I think that's gonna make that nice and solid. Gotta crank that tighter, but that's good for now. So I can get the bar on here and make sure that fits the way I like it, and then I can start working on the hinge and the side panels. Got the rear cross tube in, so we're going to clean this up in a second. But this post here, I think I'm going to put it right there, weld it in nicely across the bottom, put our hinge support brackets right up in here, and that'll get the hinge out there. I'll do something different, obviously, on the other side to wrap around with the side panels, but I'm thinking this is going to look pretty nice like that, and I'll butt that up against the tubing here over on that side, angle it in, and then a plate across the bottom. I think kind of like that. I think that'll look good. Yeah, like that. Pretty simple, tight and high, and then we'll get a little cap across the top of that side plate. Let's clean these 3/16 inch 3x2 tubes up and get them into place. Here's my fancy schmancy design. That's a little cutout for the muffler over on that side, but so how's this gonna look? It's gonna tuck up in there. I'm actually gonna use these old bumper bolt holes, and so that'll tuck up in there. This will fill in a little bit over there. That's a little top cap. It's gonna get bent down over top of it to make up the gap a little bit. And I'll do a little angled corner here in front of the hinge post. And same deal on this side. Turn it this way. So that'll fit right over there. And cut right up in there, like so. I like it. So that's gonna look pretty good. Got some good protection from underneath. I'm going to try a little technique that I use on the fuel carriers when I'm making those. Make it out of a sheet of steel, and then because this isn't super complicated, I think I should be able to, assuming this is the right size, score this these side panels along these cut lines here, and I can cut them. I wouldn't cut this one here with a plasma cutter because it's way too thin and it would totally warp, but I could do that with an angle grinder. But I think what I'm going to try and do though is score it on the back side and then bend it over, and then re-weld it along that cut. And same thing here on the passenger side where the hinge is going to be. I'm going to try it. If it doesn't work, I can always just cut through and shift everything around a little bit with the sizing, but I think that's going to work. I'm going to give it a shot. And there is the almost semi-completed version. I like it. So let's cut this back a little bit. It was a little long. I'd rather be a little long than too short. Tuck that in a smidge. I'll clean that up later. Let's see how that looks on there. And then we'll bolt that up in the front here. I think that's going to be really nice. I like it. Simple. And now I've got to figure out what I'm going to do with the back corner here. I think what probably makes more sense right now is to get this bolted up into this area here, so it's held up there nicely, and then start welding this together. So I'll weld this first, and then bolt this up into there. Maybe I'll clean the edges off first, and weld it in along the bottom part of that front tube, and then I can finish off. I can see better what I want to do with the corners here. I'm probably going to lop this off. I'm not going to be doing that on the other side, obviously, because I've got the hinge there, but I'm okay with it being different that way. I'd rather have this kind of strength here with this big, I'll pop a big weld in the bottom here. So I don't want to, like to get this back a little bit more, but I don't want to get any closer to the body. So coming along nicely. So I like the way this is coming along. I'm gonna get this bolted in at the front here. So I'll replace those with some longer bolts, but this looks good. So I think I'm gonna trim off this corner here and then bring the paneling around a little bit more. And then on this side, just leave it with the hinge support. I might put a plate in here on that side, but just really connect this in around behind here. I'd like to get this a little lower, but I want the hinge and the swing arm higher, so I'll keep it to there. And then the little swing arm will be perfectly, it'll tuck in behind there really nicely. And then we'll just connect some panels in here. I think just like a little, I'll take this corner down to the tube there, and then put a plate across there, and then carry up this top plate around the corner there. So it can go in there like that. I think that's better. I like that. Okay, cool. So these are all coming together nicely, and I'm just trying to figure out what I want to do with the ends of these corners here. I think I'm going to put a plate here right on the bottom, tuck that in there, and then the next one up just a little bit, and then I might be able to cut this down just another ½ inch or so, which I think I would like. And then I think I'm going to do the other side first, but I think just a simple plate connecting this panel here to the back of that hinge is going to work. But on this side, I'm going to do 3 straight lines up here, 1, 2, and then 3. And I'm going to probably cut that off. This comes down into this part here, so just take that out. Put a triangle in here, I think. 1 here and 1 there. I think that's going to work. And then I'm thinking just slice this whole corner of the tube off because I don't need it, not like the other side with the hinge. Okay, let's get back at it this morning. Another beautiful day. Birds singing along, it's awesome. Okay, so what we're gonna do here is we're gonna make this swing arm the complete width of the back of the truck. So we're gonna latch it in over here. So that helps me come up with the design for this cap. We're gonna pull it out all the way to kind of more mimic the hinge over there. I'm gonna be able to cut this down a little bit more, probably 3/4 of an inch there. So I'm gonna put the bottom plate here, and there is it's probably pretty hot. So this is gonna go up underneath here like this, and all I did to get these circles or holes drilled is I held this bottom plate up like that underneath. So it's gonna go under that lip. And I want it kind of like that. Just drew a little line around it, secured that in the drill press, and then drilled through both plates until I got a little indent on the bottom one, and took them out. Drilled them in just enough for this big bolt to fit through. No bigger, because we don't want any play. And that's going to be exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm going to be able to weld this in, and we get a little excess on the bottom because we want to lock the pin in to different locations, and I'll drill that later once I've figured out where I want the swing arm to stop. Okay, so I'm going to clean that up, get that cutting oil off it. And I'm going to build the swing arm out first, and once I get it out to here, then I'm going to decide, okay, how do I want to cap this off, and where do I want the latch to go? I'm almost thinking I'm going to have the latch up underneath it, cut this at an angle, and then put the latch that the hinge is going to, the catch that the latch is going to go onto up underneath here, so it's kind of like that. And then the latch U-bolt hooks onto that. Thinking that's kind of what I'm going to go for. Because I want to pull it down, but also forward. Okay, and but let's build that out first. I'm not doing anything here, and I'm almost thinking what I'm going to do here is weld a plate onto the bottom of this, and then put some rivet nuts up underneath here to be able to attach these side panels to the bottom of the cross tube, because I'm thinking the way this is anchored into the frame, I'm gonna have to tilt the whole thing down like that in order to get that rear cross tube out of the frame if you ever wants to unbolt that. And that's gonna swing the front end of these side panels up, and that could impact the paint on the side of the truck. So I don't want that. So I think that's gonna, I think I can get that to work. That's kind of why I wanna attach the latch onto the crossbar and not the rear corner panel here of the side panels. Okay, let's do some welding in there and get that all taken care of. Got some primer on here just to stop any flash rusting. Actually, a really close color to the truck. So I am going to, well, I've got these capped off now, so that's good. That's all set. Top's capped there. I'm gonna wait to finish this off because I'm not sure if I want that angle there or this one, but this will come up nicely into there. I think that's the angle I want, right there on the back. And I think I'm gonna connect it with a plate across the bottom and some rivet nuts up in here. So that side panel can come off, and then allow that whole back end to slide out. Okay, now we're gonna work on getting these hinge plates welded up in here like this, and I'll put the camera down so you can see how that all happens. So I like to use these digital angle finders. They're going to give me an idea of what plane I'm on, what angle I'm at. So right here, I don't expect this to be flat. I just want it to be relatively perpendicular to the swing bumper here. So I've got 0.0 or 0.8 degrees, so it's tilted a little bit to the down to the right here. I'm not interested in messing around with everything. So if I want to make sure that's perpendicular here, it's 89.2, so it's 0.8 off from 90. That's great. So now what I want to try and do is just recreate this 0.8 degrees along the bottom here. So I want to make sure that I get that set. This should be fine because I've got the edge here that I can tack into. The big one is when I do the top plate here. When I'm putting this on here, I want to make sure that I get this top one parallel to this bottom plate here. So I'm going to start up the welder, tack this in, and then we're going to pop that top part in as well. And that'll give that the structure that I'm looking for. So yeah, we're at 0.8 degrees here on the top. There's a little bit, 0.7. So I'm pretty happy with all that. Now I can start building out the swing arm and start to connect everything together. Okay, we're going to be working on coping the end of the swing arm here that's going to go onto the hinge cylinder. And I just find the easiest way to do that is take the hinge body and put it up so the outside edge of the hinge is on the inside edge of your tubing here on both sides. That way I'm not really worried too much about the depth into the arm, as long as I've got some good
connection on there. And the reason I do the outside of the hinge to the inside of the tubing wall there is I want to make sure that I get a nice thick amount of steel on the bead. If I move this to the outside, I'm going to have a knife edge there, and I don't want that. So I want to have this on the inside. I'm just going to trace that out around. And one of the things you can do, because we're going to have to go to the other side, is just to mark off where the hinge is in relation to the actual tube. So if you go to the other side, then I can line those up. Make sure I got it centered, and I'm actually on the inside. The tube on each side. Like out. Now this should be the same depth on each side. I'm going to show you how I check that. Let me. The reason I've got two of these is because I want to. Once I put this coping in there, I'm going to get my angle, right angle square, and have a nice tall side here to make sure I've got it perfectly perpendicular to the surface of the tube. So let's cut this out. I'm just going to use my angle grinder cutoff wheel, just slice this out, take out some pieces, maybe smooth it a bit with the sander, and go through that. It's not too complicated. And so all I'm trying to do here is just cut on the inside of that line. And now what we're going to do is figure out, okay, how vertical should I make it? Is it the same height or depth on each side? Let's get this respirator off. Oops. Okay, now the easiest way I found to do that is grab a little square here. I throw that up against there, and I can sort of tell when I've got one in here, right? But it's easier to tell when I've got two, and I can tell already from looking at this line. I cut a little bit more into the line on the bottom, so chances are it's going to be too far out going this way here, and we'll see that in a second. So put that up there. Yeah, so let's see if I can turn that off. You can see that. Which is not a big deal. We just have to slide out a little bit more from the top here. So even on there, yeah, it's a little off. And if I take a little bit more into this line on the top part here, that should do it. Bit better, but not quite. So what am I missing here? If I look down from the top, it seems to be, I'm good in the middle. It's just this section here. If I look down, I can see it's contacting, especially right here and a little bit there. If I peel that off, that should do it. Here we go. Okay, so we're good on that. So now I can get in there, tack that into place, and then start working on the swing arm length. Okay, we've got the hinge ready to roll. So what I did is I just sanded off the body of the hinge there where I'm going to weld it in, get a better connection. Put 2/4 inch plates there on the bottom, and to space the arm up enough into the hinge that I've got a bit of a collar on the bottom below the swing arm to get a good weld in there. And then that gives me the height that I'm looking for above the bumper. You can see that. Let's squeeze that out. So we got nice consistent gap across the bottom. So now I can push this swing arm into the hinge, put some tacks in there, and then start building out the swing arm. And I will weld that more completely into place as we go along. But I want to get the swing arm put together, get that length cut, and then start figuring out what I want to do with the latch over on the left hand side here so that I can draw that nice and tight onto the bumper itself. Okay, I'm going to pop that off, weld that in. I don't like to do too much more until I get the bushings in there, but I have to let the welds all cool down, so that's as level as I'd like it to be. So what I'm going to do now, right now, pop that off, weld in the hinge, let that cool, press the bushings in on my 20-ton press, and then I can get that back into place, tighten the bolt. Now I know everything's going to be perfectly lined up. I can adjust the length. I cut it to length, but I might need to adjust that a little bit based on how that shifts around, but I think it's good where it is. And then I can start working on the tire post, the carrier, and then the latch. Okay, so that is all done. It is smoking hot right now. So we're gonna let that cool. I think I can probably get my air compressor on there and get some air on it, cool it down a little bit quicker, but it's gonna take a little while. Because all that metal absorbs a lot of, it's like a big heat sink. Once that's cool, then we can get the bushings and press those in. These, I believe they're oil impregnated brass, so we can't put them in while that's hot because it's just gonna sweat all the oil out of these things, so we don't want that. So let that cool down, and then we can get working on building out that tire carrier. Actually, while we're waiting for the hinge to cool down, let's make these extension plates that we're gonna put on the bottom of the side panels here. I think they're 6 inches wide. Yeah, so they're 6 inches wide. They come right up to the edge of the rear cross tube there, and this is 3 inches across. I'm thinking if I make like a 2-inch overlap on each side, so 6 by 4 inches plate, and I'm going to weld it onto the bottom part of the plate here, and then it's going to snug up into the bottom part of that cross tube, and then I'll put 2 bolts in here, little rib nuts. I think that's going to work. So that's 6 by 4. Let's make it 5.5 by 4. I do that, 2 of those, one on each side. That'll be good. I think I'll use. I guess I could use 10 gauge on that as well. Same as the side panels. Okay, so 4 by 5.5. Here we go. Let's get these bushings pressed into the hinge, and I've just got my. This is a 20-ton hydraulic jack And what I want to do here is get this into position. I tried doing this before with just bashing it in with a hammer and like a soft mallet. It just took forever. Gosh, it was not enjoyable at all. Trying to get that to go in there straight. And it seems to do a better job. I gotta get it started though. I think I'm on the wrong height. I was hoping that was going to do it. So I'm going to have to drop this down. I just had it down. And I gotta drop it down. Okay, let's try this again. That should do it. That's good. Way easier. And smashing it in with a mallet. Swing arm is in place, and I've got this all bolted in tight underneath here because I want to make sure that this is level, even, isn't going to go anywhere. So I want to make sure I like the position it's in, and now we can start to work on the tire carrier. And then the one thing you want to make sure when you're doing the tire carrier is that the swing arm doesn't move forward or back. So you want to block it out or latch it in, however you want to do it. So in this case, what I'm going to do is just block it so that it's not going to move out. Because if I'm taking the angle and the distance of the spare tire off the back window and door, I want to make sure that the swing arm stays in the right spot. So I'm measuring things without things moving around on me. So anyways, let's start figuring out where we want to put that tire. And at some point in time, I'm going to switch gears and go over to the left side here and start to work on, come on, get in there. Start to work on this latch because I want to make sure I get that caught and stuck in properly. I just not sure exactly how I'm going to connect it in. I was thinking I'm going to do something with this face here and crank it in like that, but I might go with a little post coming out from the bottom here and underneath that just sticks out, and then I can latch onto it that way. So, lots of different options, but let's get on that tire carrier. So now we're positioning the tire on the back to figure out where we want to put the post. Well, the post is going to go in the middle because the tire is going to be in the middle, but we want to figure out how high it's going to be. I'm thinking these are about 1-inch blocks for an RV leveling system. We use them when we're off-road camping with the 4Runner and the rooftop tent. And these work great for holding the tire. I'm just going to be careful now with paint there. And what I want to do is get this wheel up there in order to see, okay, so I like the position in terms of how high it is and what angle am I going to get it at, and I'll show you how I do all that. It's in a bunch of the other videos as well, but right now I'm thinking, okay, I got to protect the back of the truck, so I'm going to have to lay something over top of that. Maybe my fiberglass blanket I think would work, and then get that wheel up there. And then I usually put a couple of these spacers in behind it. I don't have to worry about a windshield washer or wiper thing, but I'm going to get one of these up here and probably a couple of them to space it out an inch or two from the back door here. And I've got this swing arm blocked off with a 2x4 over there, so that's giving me the right gap, and I'll latch that in later. Right now I'm just going to throw a blanket up over here and start to mess around with positioning. Okay, I'm liking the way that works. So right now we're working on the tire position. I like the way that's looking. Might be a little high. I think I'm going to drop it down a smidge. Oh, how did I get? I think I started with 4 of those little spacers, and now all of a sudden I have 5. So, okay, so that would explain it. Let me get rid of one of those. Take 2 off and see how that looks. I think this might be better actually, to do 3 instead of 4. Okay, I like that, I think. Yeah, I like that better. Yeah, that's good. Okay, cool. So the easiest way I found to work on getting the height and position of this tire post here, obviously figure out where you want your tire to go, left or right, and we're going to mark that right in the middle there, right below that Toyota logo. The easiest way I found to create the angle for the tire carrier, initially I was having the post here like that and the angle like that, and then trying to figure out, okay, what do I need to cut that angle at minus this one to get it flush with or parallel to the back window. Now what I do is I just have the tire post come up to just over halfway above this hub opening here, and then comes out at a 90-degree angle, and then I cut whatever the angle of the window is. You know, I don't know what these second gens are. It's probably close to 20 degrees. Most of them are about that. And then the end of the tire post, the neck, gets cut at 20 degrees because everything else is 90. So it's coming straight out. So now what I'm going to do is just grab a tape measure and figure out, okay, I see where do I want it to be, the top of the post. So the tire plate's going to be up in here, so I'm going to have the top of the post maybe an inch above that Toyota logo. So I'm just going to very simply measure, okay, where do I think I want that post? Let's say maybe 1.5 inches, maybe 2 inches above the Toyota logo. And we can measure that off. Come on. So about 18.5 inches is going to be the top of the post. And then once we've got the post in place, then I'm going to measure from the back of the post. So I'm going to hook it on the back of the post and measure up to the back of this tire plate here, the wheel plate, and then subtract 1/4 inch for the plate that I'm going to put the lug bolts through. And it's probably going to be, 4 1/4 inches, something like that. But one step at a time. Let's get that post in place, and then we'll go from there. We'll be putting this tire back on and off, so it's a good bit of a workout for a while. Okay, we got the tire post all cut. One of the things you want to check when you're putting this in is to make sure that it's vertical, right? So just get a square and make sure that it's dialed in all the way around. And if not, then you might need to adjust your saw blade to make sure that cut gets in perfectly. So next step, I always like to do this is grab a piece of steel, for example. Doesn't need to be much. You can clamp it in if you want, and just hold it in behind your tubing, and then that will make sure that each side is flush with the tubing, because you don't want it twisted and you don't want it more sticking out more on the other than one side than the other. So once you've got that all figured out, I'm going to grab some steel and just clamp it in, because I prefer to do that. Then we'll put a couple tack welds in there. Then we're going to get the supports in, and I'm probably going to I usually do about 14.5, 15. I might go to 16 on this one. And then we'll put the tire back up there, measure out the neck, and then we'll put a little gusset in the bottom here just to make sure that that's really secure. Just like that. So we've got the piece of steel on the back, on the front here, clamped in tight, and then to make sure it's still vertical and we're in the right position, we get the little square up there. So I'm just going to put a couple tacks into that and get that solidly in place. So there's our two pieces. So I cut one side, flipped it over, cut the other, and then just got put this one on top, put a line on the other just to make sure that they're the right length, or the same length, I guess. And then these are just gonna pop up in here like this. Again, same thing, I'm just gonna clamp front and back to make sure that I've got them flush with the actual face of the tubing. It'd help if you could see what I was talking about. There you go. So I'm just going to put them up against here, clamp them, or at least hold some steel on the back side now that I know this is right on line, and then just tack them into place, and then I'll weld them in later. But that's how that's going to look. And then we're going to put the tire back on, measure the neck length, and figure out the angle that we want to cut that at. And it's probably going to be able to use this scrap piece here that I've got. That's at 45 degrees. So that's going to come in there. I think that's going to be really close to the right length. And then I'm just going to cut an angle here to mimic the window angle. So let me get these tacked into place, and good to go. Okay, so now we're working on the neck of the tire post. We want to figure out the distance from the top of that tire post to the back plate here, and then we're going to take off 1/4 of an inch for the tire plate. So what I'm doing here is I'm looking at the angle that I've got the wheel at relative to this post. See, I've got some space here, so that's good. And I'm pretty close to the angle that I want on the back door. It doesn't have to be exact, I just want to get it close. So now what I can figure out is, okay, kind of where I want to be. I could probably squish it a little tighter in if I want, or I can pull it out a little bit. Either way, but I like it the way it is right now. So what I'm going to do is just measure, and I prefer to use a ruler, if I can find one. There's a little one over here. It's like a bit of a disaster zone in here as I'm rolling through all this stuff. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to measure in from the back of that tire plate, or the post, to the plate, and I've got 5.5 inches. It's a little longer than I thought it was going to be. Okay, so I've got 5.5 inches, and I'm going to take off 1/4 of an inch. So 5.25 inches is going to be the length of this plate neck here. and that's going to be to the top. So 5 1/4, and then I'm going to go whatever angle that back window is at, and I'll show you how I would do that. Just a second. So I got a little protractor here. It's a digital dude, and what I'm going to do is just open this up. I think it's going to be, so there's 180, you know, perfectly vertical. It's probably going to be like 162 or something, maybe 160. It's kind of the angle. So what I'm going to do is hold this up to parallel with the tire post, and then say, okay, so I need to come down a little bit to match up with the wheel. And yeah, 160. So that's going to be a 20-degree cut. So what I'm going to do is just measure off 5 1/4 inches from along the top of this deal here, the neck, and it's going to go to right there, and then it's going to be 20 degrees like that. So let's cut that off. So this is going to be like that. I'm going to have the saw set that way, and we're just going to slice this part off. And then when I weld that on, I'm going to have the right angle for that wheel to be perfectly parallel to the back of the truck. So we're all set. So that's just going to go onto the tire post like that. Now we've got our 20-degree angle for the front, and the tire plate can get welded right onto that. Now I'm not going to put this into the neck yet. I'm going to put the tire plate on first and then stick it on. But I have to get the tire plate made. I've got the plate, but I don't have the holes drilled, because these seem to be different than a normal Toyota hub for some reason. And it's not a big deal. I just need to make sure I get the right hole pattern. So let's get this pattern for the bolts going. I think I'm going to use these two and that one. So pretty straightforward. My hands are pretty filthy when I'm doing this stuff, so it's not too hard to come up with a little template. There we go. I'm going to over drill the holes anyways, and you'll see how that fits in. But there's our pattern. We're going to put that on the plate. Where do I have that? Right here. So this is the old one that I've been using for most Toyotas, and obviously not working on this one. I can get maybe two lined up. Yeah, but not the other one, it's way outside. So anyways, let's do these two here. Trying to This is more or less the plate that the back of the wheel. And I'm just going to do, I think, that. So if I center everything like that, that looks good. Slide that over a little bit. 2 1/8. 3/4, I think. Yeah, there we go. So I like that. So we're going to go with that pattern there. I'm going to end up, there it is. I like to knock off the corners, but we're going to mark right here. Again, it doesn't have to be exactly where I want it. Just because I'm going to over drill the hole for the bolt, and then the conical collar on the bolt is going to self-center it as this goes in. There we go. So a little different than what I had before, but this is going to work. Okay, so let's drill these out, and then we can get that tire plug bolted up and then weld it onto that neck. Okay, this is pretty simple. What we're going to do here is we're going to put the lug bolts through where we want the lug bolts to go, and then we're going to put the nuts in from the other side. And I'll show you how the cone heels work. Here, just grab my 19mm 12-point socket and just tighten that up there, so that's all good. Wiggle the plate around, make sure these are sticking out perfectly straight. I like the way they look. Looks good. So now we're just gonna put some tacks on there. Make sure that doesn't move around. Tack them. I usually do one on each side and then take the whole thing off and then weld all the way around it. Plate, so that's good. Now we're going to flip it around, pop some welds all around there, maybe a bit on the front here. But you can see how the holes are oversized, but the cone actually centers the bolt quite nicely. We're going to put this tire neck on here, and I'm going to just measure this out. I want to make sure I got it centered left to right. Got this all clamped into place. This is supporting the bottom of the neck. Some plates on either side here to keep it perfectly flush. As I'm going to put some tacks in here, pop all this stuff off, and then I can finish welding it up. And then I'll lop off the corners of that tire plate later. Probably should have done that now, but I think I'll get to that later. on the top. Perfect, so that fits nice. I like the way that looks. From straight behind, let's take a look at it from the side. Perfect. So one of the things you always want to make sure is when you're measuring this, you want it flat across the back. These second gens are pretty flat across the back, but a lot of the newer trucks are very rounded. And if you, especially if you have your tire placed more to the right, if you have it parallel to the back of the door on the right here, when you look at it, it's going to be, this will be an exaggeration, but it'll be like that relative to the back of the truck. So you want to make sure it's flat in alignment with the swing arm. So that looks really good. I'm happy with how that turned out for sure. Nice. We got lots of room for different license plate options too. Probably be down over here, so we can wire in the light and bring it into the hinge side and up into that tail light there. And so now we'll pull this off, finish welding all these post connections, and then I can get working on this latch. What time is it? 3:30. Okay. I was hoping to have more of this done today. But anyways, this is looking great, and always worth taking the time to make sure you get it all dialed in properly. Cool. Okay. Okay. It is Friday, and we are working on these side panels here. Notice I have a long sleeve shirt on today because as much as it's so hot and humid here, my arms are getting so red from welding, and I really should wear long sleeves. So if you're welding, wear long sleeves. And I quite often have the respirator on, protecting everything from lungs, breathing, eye protection. I've always got that on, hearing. Anyways, right now what we're working on is got these side panels all dialed in. I had to change the height of this one just a little bit. I wasn't really happy with the gap. It's a little too low, so I just welded in a strip in here. And then put some riv nuts in on each side because the client wants this whole bumper assembly bolted in, which is way more difficult because we've got to bolt it in instead of just welding it in. But we've got the frame components welded in. I'm going to use these front bolt locations up here. I think those are M6s. And then I put some M8 riv nuts up in here, and we're going to put these in. So I'll tighten those up later. But right now we're going to finish off this corner assembly. And I've just got the cardboard cut out. So I did this one, welded it in, and then I just keep coming back. So the one that I tried is a little different shape than how I'm going around. I just want to try and keep it as tight as possible. I'm going to have it above this bumper here. So we've got a little bit of a gap there. And then I'm just measuring off my little cardboard template there. I'll cut that line, cut this again, and then weld that into place. Pretty straightforward. Well, we got everything back from the powder coater. Got the side panels up in the front because they're small. I didn't want them bouncing around. Let's get them on this rig. It's gonna look great. Had some audio issues on these couple of clips, but build came out really nice. Got it all welded in, touched up the welds with some Rust-Oleum enamel. But I just love the way this build looks. It's super high, super low profile, really clean looking. It's a nice coating that we got on there, and Aaron loved the build. He was really happy with how it looked. Came shortly after this and picked it up on a U-Haul dolly and took it back to Austin area. So anyways, came together really nice. Thanks so much for watching the video. Appreciate you checking out the channel, and if you want to see more of these, like and subscribe, hit the notifications. Oh, we didn't coat them yet, but I will get some Rust-Oleum enamel on there to coat up those welds. But yeah, thanks for checking out the channel. I got some great builds coming up. So we've got a 2021 5th gen that we worked on and made a roof rack, a ladder,
rock sliders, rear bumper, and a front bumper as well, full front bumper. And that was for Robert, and he's moving to Colombia, so he wants to be able to tour around with his rig in South America. So anyways, thanks for checking out the channel. Enjoy the final picks, and I'll catch you on a future video.